The last message from my old phone. Last year, I received a text message from my old phone. The strange thing was, that phone had been broken for months. It didn't even turn on anymore. But the message said something that made my heart stop. Why did you leave me here? The old phone. A few years ago, I had a phone that I used for almost 5 years. Eventually, the screen stopped working after I accidentally dropped it on concrete. The phone wouldn't turn on anymore, so I bought a new one and put the old one in a drawer. I didn't think about it again. Months passed. Life moved on. Until one night when something strange happened. The message. It was around 11 p.m. I was sitting on the couch scrolling through social media when my phone buzzed. I looked at the screen. New message. The contact name showed something unusual. My old phone. At first I thought it was some strange bug or spam message. But when I opened the message, my stomach dropped. It said, "Why did you leave me here?" Confusion. I stared at the screen, trying to understand what was happening. The message had been sent from the same number that belonged to my old phone. But that phone had no battery, and it had been sitting inside my desk drawer for months. I got up slowly and walked toward the desk. The drawer was still closed, exactly where I left it. Checking the drawer. My heart was beating fast as I opened the drawer. Inside was the old phone, exactly the way I remembered it. Cracked screen. Dust on the edges. I pressed the power button. Nothing happened. The phone was completely dead. Another message. A few minutes later. My current phone buzzed again. Another message. From the same contact. My old phone. This time the message said, "I can still see your room." Looking around. That message made me feel extremely uncomfortable. I slowly looked around my apartment. Everything looked normal. The living room was empty. The windows were closed. The front door was locked. But something about that message felt wrong. The final message. Then my phone vibrated again. One last message appeared. "I'm behind you." My heart jumped. I turned around immediately. But the room was empty. No one there. The strange ending. The next morning I checked my phone again. The messages were gone. Completely deleted from my conversation history. Like they had never been sent. But sometimes late at night, my phone screen lights up for a second, with no notification. And every time it happens, I remember that message. "I'm behind you." Call to action CTA. If you enjoy creepy true stories like this one, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more horror stories every week. And if you still keep your old phone somewhere in your house, you might want to check if it's really turned off. Because sometimes, old devices don't stay silent forever. Second story. Last year, I installed a small security camera in my living room. It was just to keep an eye on the house while I was at work. Nothing unusual ever appeared on the recordings. Until one night when the camera sent me a motion alert at 2:41 a.m. When I opened the footage, I saw someone standing in my living room. But the strange part was, I lived alone. A quiet apartment. At the time, I was living in a small apartment in Minnesota. It wasn't a big place. Just a bedroom, a kitchen, and a living room. I worked long hours during the week, so I decided to install a small indoor security camera. Mostly for peace of mind. The camera faced the living room and recorded whenever it detected motion. For months, the camera never recorded anything interesting. Just normal things. Sunlight changing during the day. or the lights turning on when I came home. Nothing unusual. The first alert. One night around 2:41 a.m., my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Half asleep, I looked at the notification. Motion detected in living room. I assumed it was just a glitch. Sometimes cameras trigger when light changes. Still, curiosity made me open the app. The recording started playing. At first, everything looked normal. The living room lights were off. The couch and table were exactly where they should be. But then I noticed something. Near the hallway entrance, someone was standing there. The figure. The figure was tall, standing completely still, facing the camera. I couldn't see their face clearly because the room was dark, but the shape of a person was unmistakable. My heart started beating faster, because at that moment, I was in my bedroom, and I was the only person in the apartment. Checking the house, I slowly got out of bed and walked toward the bedroom door. The hallway was dark, silent. I turned on the hallway light and stepped into the living room. Nothing. The room was empty. No one there. Everything looked exactly the same as always. Watching the footage again. The next morning, I watched the recording again. This time more carefully. The video showed the empty living room for about 10 seconds. Then suddenly, the figure appeared near the hallway, almost like it stepped into view. But what made it strange was the movement. The person didn't walk normally. They moved slowly, almost gliding across the floor. The camera angle. Then something even stranger happened in the video. The figure turned its head slightly and looked directly at the camera. Then the recording stopped. The app said the motion event had ended. More alerts. Over the next week, the camera sent 2 more motion alerts during the night. Both times around the same hour. Both times the living room looked empty at first. And then, the same figure appeared in the frame, standing near the hallway. Not moving. Just watching. The last recording. After the third alert, I decided to unplug the camera. Before doing that, I watched the last recording one more time. At the very end of the video, something strange happened. The figure slowly walked toward the camera. Closer and closer, until the screen filled with darkness. Then the recording ended. What happened after? After that night, I removed the camera completely. I haven't installed another one since. Nothing unusual has happened in the apartment again. But sometimes when I sit in the living room late at night, I still think about that camera footage. Because if the camera was facing the living room, then whoever appeared in the video must have been standing right outside my bedroom door. Call to action, CTA. If you enjoy creepy real stories like this one, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more horror stories every week. And if you have security cameras inside your home, you might want to check the recordings carefully. Because sometimes, they capture things you didn't expect to see. Third story. In the summer of 2009, a man driving through rural Nevada made a strange discovery. He found a road that didn't appear on any map. At first, he thought it was just an old service road or a forgotten highway exit. But a few miles later, he reached a small town that shouldn't have existed. And when he tried to find it again the next day, the road was gone. The beginning. The story begins with a travel photographer named Daniel Carter. Daniel spent most of his time driving across the United States, taking photos of small towns and unusual places. He loved exploring locations that most people ignored. Empty roads, old buildings, places that felt forgotten. In July of 2009, Daniel was traveling through Nevada on his way to California. The road was long and quiet. Miles of desert stretched across the horizon. There were almost no other cars on the highway. Around sunset, Daniel noticed something strange. A narrow road branching off from the highway. The odd part was that his GPS showed nothing there. No road. No town. Just empty desert. But the road clearly existed. Curious, Daniel decided to explore it. The desert road. The road was old but still paved. As Daniel drove farther, the desert slowly changed. Instead of empty land, he began seeing fences and power lines. About 15 minutes later, he saw buildings in the distance. A small town. The sign at the entrance read, "Welcome to Silver Creek." But something about the place felt unusual. The town looked old. Not abandoned. Just quiet. Too quiet. The strange town. Daniel parked his car near a small diner on the main street. A few lights were on inside the buildings. But the streets were almost empty. The architecture looked like it belonged somewhere in the 1970s. Old cars were parked along the road. Older models Daniel rarely saw anymore. When he entered the diner, a few people were sitting inside. Everyone seemed calm. But when Daniel walked in, several people turned and stared at him. Not in a friendly way. More like they were surprised to see someone new. The waitress eventually walked over. She asked where he was from. When Daniel said he was just passing through, her expression changed slightly, almost like she didn't expect visitors. The first strange moment. Daniel ordered coffee and started asking questions about the town. But the answers he got were strange. None of the residents mentioned the nearby highway. When he asked how to get back to it, the waitress paused. Then she simply said, "Most people don't come through here." That answer didn't make sense. Daniel had just driven from the highway minutes earlier. Still, he finished his coffee and left the diner. He planned to stay the night in his car and take photos in the morning. But as he walked outside, he noticed something strange. The town was becoming quieter, almost like people were disappearing from the streets. And the few people who remained were watching him. Part 2: The Night in Silver Creek. The motel. Daniel eventually found a small motel near the edge of town. The sign outside flickered with a dim yellow light. Inside the office sat an older man reading a newspaper. Daniel asked if there were any available rooms. The man looked at him for a long moment before answering. "Yes," he said slowly. "Room 7. The room looked normal enough. A bed. A lamp. A small television. But Daniel noticed something strange immediately. The TV only played static. No channels. No signal. The midnight sound. Around midnight, Daniel woke up to a sound outside. Footsteps. Slow footsteps walking past the motel window. He assumed it was someone from the town walking by. But the footsteps continued for several minutes. Back and forth. Back and forth. Eventually, curiosity got the better of him. He pulled the curtain aside and looked outside. The parking lot was empty. No one there. But the footsteps continued. The empty streets. The next morning, Daniel walked through the town with his camera. But something was different. The town felt emptier. Many of the buildings were closed. Some even looked abandoned. Daniel knocked on the diner door from the night before. No response. The lights were off. When he looked through the window, the place looked dusty, like it hadn't been used in years. The photograph. Daniel took several photographs around the town. Old houses, empty streets, a school building. But while reviewing the photos later, he noticed something strange. In several photos, a figure appeared in the distance, standing near buildings, watching him. But Daniel didn't remember seeing anyone while taking the photos. Part 3. The town that was never there. The missing road. Later that afternoon, Daniel decided to leave. He drove back toward the desert road he had used the night before. But after 20 minutes of driving, he couldn't find it. The road was gone. There was only desert. No sign of pavement. No town. Nothing. Eventually, Daniel returned to the highway, confused and exhausted, searching for Silver Creek. Back home, Daniel began researching the town. He searched maps, government records, local history, but no town named Silver Creek existed in that part of Nevada. Not currently, not in the past, but one record did appear. A small mining town named Silver Creek that existed in the 1970s. The town had been abandoned decades earlier, after a large mine closed nearby. The final detail. Months later, Daniel reviewed the photographs again. One image stood out. A photo of the motel parking lot. At first glance, it looked empty. But when he zoomed in, he saw several people standing near the edge of the frame, watching him. The strange thing was, those people looked exactly like the residents he had seen in the diner. And every single one of them was staring directly at the camera. Ending. Daniel never found the road again, even after returning to the area several times. But he kept the photographs, proof that for one night, he had visited a town that no longer existed. Or perhaps, a town that wasn't meant to be found at all. Call to action, CTA. If you enjoy true horror documentary stories like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more real creepy mysteries every week. And if you ever find a road that doesn't appear on the map, you might want to think twice before following it. Because sometimes, not every road leads back home. Fourth story. In the winter of 2015, residents of a small town in Kansas noticed something strange. A house appeared where there had been nothing the day before. No construction, no workers, no trucks, just an empty field on Monday, and a fully built house on Tuesday morning. At first, people assumed it was a mistake. But the deeper they looked into it, the stranger the story became. The town of Maple Ridge, was quiet and ordinary. It had one grocery store, a small gas station, and a few hundred residents. Most people knew each other. And because the town was small, everyone noticed when something unusual happened. On a cold morning in January, a farmer named Harold Benson was driving past a large empty field just outside town. He had passed that field hundreds of times before. It had always been empty. But that morning, there was a house sitting in the middle of it. The discovery. Harold slowed his truck and stared at the building. It was a two-story house with white walls and a dark roof. Smoke slowly rose from the chimney. At first, he assumed construction must have happened recently. But that didn't make sense. Harold had driven past the same field the night before, and the field had been completely empty. He was certain of it. Curious, Harold drove into town and told a few neighbors what he had seen. Soon, several people drove out to see the house themselves. And sure enough, it was there, standing quietly in the middle of the field. The records. Later that afternoon, someone checked the county property records. According to official documents, no house had ever been registered on that land. No building permits. No construction plans. Nothing. It was as if the house simply appeared. Part 2: The Strange Activity. The lights. That night, several residents noticed lights coming from the house. The windows glowed softly, as if someone was inside. But no one had seen anyone enter or leave. The driveway remained empty. No cars. No footprints in the snow. Yet the lights stayed on late into the night. The first visit. The next morning, a group of 3 residents decided to approach the house. They walked slowly across the snowy field. Everything felt strangely quiet. When they reached the front door, they knocked. No response. They knocked again. Still nothing. Finally, one of them gently pushed the door open. It creaked slightly as it moved. Inside, the house looked fully furnished. Tables, chairs, bookshelves, even pictures hanging on the walls. But something felt off. Every object looked slightly outdated, almost like everything belonged to another decade. The photograph. In the living room, one of the residents noticed a framed photograph. It showed a family standing in front of the same house. A man, a woman, and 2 children. But the photo looked very old, perhaps from the 1960s. Strangely, none of the people in the town recognized the family. The sound upstairs. As the group walked through the house, they suddenly heard something. A soft sound. Footsteps. Coming from the second floor. The 3 people looked at each other, because they were certain no one else had entered the house. Slowly, they walked toward the staircase. But the moment they reached the first step, the sound stopped. Part 3: The Disappearance. The investigation. Over the next few days, more people came to see the house. Even local officials visited. But no one could explain how the building appeared overnight. Then something even stranger happened. Some residents began reporting lights turning on and off inside the house late at night. Others claimed they saw shadows moving behind the windows. Yet every time someone went to check, the house was empty. The old story. Eventually, an older resident named Martha remembered something unusual. She recalled hearing a story from her parents many years ago. Decades earlier, a family had lived in a house somewhere in that same area. One winter night, the entire house caught fire. By morning, nothing remained except ashes. The family was never seen again. The final morning. About 2 weeks after the house first appeared, residents woke up to find something shocking. The house was gone. Completely gone. The field looked exactly the way it had before. Just snow covering empty ground. No foundation. No debris. No sign that a building had ever stood there. The last evidence. The only proof the house ever existed came from photographs taken by several residents. But even those images showed something strange. In many of the pictures, the windows appeared dark, except for one. In that window, a faint figure could be seen standing inside the house, looking out. Ending. To this day, no one in Maple Ridge can explain what happened. No construction crews were ever found. No official records ever appeared. And the empty field remains exactly the same. But sometimes on cold winter nights, residents claim they can see a distant light glowing in the middle of the field, as if a house is still standing there, hidden in the darkness. Call to action, CTA. If you enjoy true horror documentary stories like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more mysterious and creepy stories every week. And if you ever see a building appear where nothing stood before, you might want to think twice before walking inside. Because sometimes, Not every house belongs to the present. Fifth story. In October of 2011, a small local television station in Arizona received a broadcast signal that no one could explain. The signal appeared suddenly at 2:13 a.m. It interrupted the regular programming for exactly 3 minutes. Viewers who were awake at that hour saw something strange on their screens. An empty room, a single chair, and a voice speaking slowly in the background. But when the station checked their equipment, they discovered something disturbing. The broadcast didn't come from their system, and the signal didn't come from anywhere on Earth that they could trace. The station. The television station was called Channel 8 Desert News, a small local network serving several towns in southern Arizona. Most nights after midnight, the station aired simple reruns and weather updates. Nothing unusual ever happened there. Until one night when the control room noticed something strange. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the broadcast signal suddenly changed. The regular program disappeared, and a new video appeared on the screen. The strange video. The footage showed a dimly lit room. There were no windows. The walls were plain and empty. In the center of the room sat a wooden chair. The camera angle never moved. It simply showed the room in silence. For about 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then a quiet sound began. A voice. Slow, calm, almost whispering. But the words were difficult to understand. The first reactions. Several viewers called the station during the broadcast. They thought the station was airing some kind of strange advertisement or experimental program. But the employees in the control room were just as confused. According to their equipment, no one inside the station was sending that video. And yet it was clearly being broadcast. Exactly 3 minutes later, the video disappeared. Regular programming returned. Part 2: The Investigation. The recording. Fortunately, the station's system automatically recorded everything that aired that night. The next morning, technicians reviewed the footage. At first glance, the video seemed simple. Just the empty room, the chair, and the faint voice. But when they increased the audio volume, they realized something unsettling. The voice was repeating the same sentence over and over. Someone is watching. The disturbing detail. About 2 minutes into the video, something changed. The chair moved slightly. Not much, just a small shift. But no one appeared in the room. The camera continued recording the empty space. Yet the chair slowly turned toward the camera, as if someone had sat down, even though the room still looked empty. Tracing the signal. The station contacted broadcast engineers to trace the origin of the signal. Normally, signals could be tracked easily. Every transmission had a source. But this signal behaved differently. The system detected it, yet it couldn't determine where it came from. It was as if the signal had appeared in the broadcast system without traveling through any normal path. A similar incident. While researching strange broadcast interruptions, one engineer discovered something interesting. A very similar signal had appeared in another television station almost 10 years earlier. That broadcast had also shown a simple room, and a chair, and a voice speaking slowly. But that recording had been lost years ago. Part 3: The Final Frame. The last seconds. The most disturbing part of the video appeared in the final 10 seconds. At first, nothing looked different. But when technicians slowed down the footage frame by frame, they noticed something in the corner of the room. A shadow, standing near the wall. The shape looked like a person, but it had not been visible during normal playback. The frame. In the very last frame of the video, the shadow had moved closer to the camera. Much closer. So close that it almost filled the entire screen. But the shape still had no clear face. Just a dark outline. Watching the second broadcast. 2 months later, something similar happened again. At the exact same time. 2:13 a.m. But this time, the broadcast lasted only 20 seconds. The same room appeared. The same chair. But now the chair was facing directly toward the camera. And the voice said something new. "Next time you will see me." Then the signal disappeared. Ending. After that night, the station upgraded all of its equipment. Engineers monitored the system constantly. But the strange signal never appeared again. However, the recording of the original broadcast still exists. And every now and then, when technicians review the footage, they notice something strange. In some versions of the recording, the shadow in the corner appears slightly closer to the camera than before. Call to action, CTA. If you enjoy true horror documentary stories like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more mysterious and creepy stories every week. And if you ever see a strange signal interrupting your TV late at night, you might want to turn it off. Because sometimes, not every broadcast is meant to be seen.